Hey, my
Hey,
hair always doing something by itself.
did you do something like a second ago? I thought it looked fine a minute.
It probably did look 5 minutes, and then decided it wanted to do what it wanted to do. So
Oh,
whatever.
goodness. Well, here we are, another Blue Bottle series. Come on, lead us in.
Hey, hey. So
Hey.
welcome. Hush Harbor Lab. We are a new play development company that focuses on experimental work by Atlanta-based Black artists, and so it is wonderful to share this time with you all.
Yes, indeed. Um, I think one of the biggest thing, of course, this is Moon. I'm Amina McIntyre.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You didn't
then
see
you
them.
introduce yourself. I mean, how they supposed to know who you are, Day? Come on.
My name is right there.
I know, but still. So the Blue Bottle series in particular is what when we started doing labs last summer, we realized that there were some conversations about new play development processes that Black artists had because a lot of them hadn't had full experiences with play labs just yet. And so we noticed that there were a lot of people who were doing things with new play development, but then they kind of weren't. But then they hadn't kind of had questions, but unanimously everybody was like, you know what, this is our first time doing this, and we would love to do it again. And we have all these questions, and so we said, hey, why don't we bring on people who do this all the time? Because there are people in the area who do this all the time. And so today we get to hang out with some folks that we absolutely love and adore,
Yeah.
Marguerite Hannah and Lauren Morris. And so we're going to bring them on in just 1 second. You ready to bring them on? Anything else we need to say
Yeah.
before we bring
Oh
them
yeah.
on?
Bring them.
Okay, they're family, so and they will tell you that. So we are super excited to bring them on today. So join us. Let me see.
Hey.
Hi.
Two of my favorite people.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's that.
Ditto.
Yeah, big time. There's a little bit of a love fest here.
It's a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Virtual hugs all over.
Yeah. So why don't you both, if you don't mind, start off by just telling us a little bit about you, and just kind of where your kind of your artistic journey up to this point and how you got to where you are.
You go first, Marguerite.
Okay. My initial drug was acting. That's how I got hooked, mainline. But as the years have gone on, the last 10 to 12 years, I've spent more time producing on the producing side. I am at Horizon Theater as associate artistic producer. I'm also on the board of directors of the National New Play Network, and I'm on the board and festival committee for the National Alliance of Music Theater Festival. So, new works over the last few years has become, well, it always was my passion because as an actor, my very first play was not a published work. Mm-hmm. So I've loved the changing words on a page my whole life in this industry. So that's kind of the short, that's me.
My first drug was acting too. I think a lot of us come into that as young people, and then if we're lucky, we get around some other folks who teach us how to do other things, and we can figure out what it is that we really, what's our purpose. How do we serve best? I think, or at least that's what happened for me. I was an actor for a long time, and then I went to school for theater management, and I was a managing director for a little while. All the while, I was always directing things and devising things. And I think the new play process was so ingrained in my original training. My little tiny theater department at Indiana State University was the chair of the department was a playwright. And everything we did was about new work. So he had this playwriting class that was amazing. And we had a new play festival every year that was huge and student directed. And so I was just kind of thrown into that from the very beginning. And so it's always been part of what I do. And now primarily direct. I'm just a freelance director that is exactly what I want to be doing. I love it so much.
So I've had the honor of working with both of you. Well, we both have for a couple of years with the apprentice program at Horizon Theater. The program that was really thanks to Marguerite's genius
Or desperation.
and desperation. That's a program that's really centered on new work from both a playwright's perspective, stage management, as well as actors. So, could you guys talk a little bit about what, especially in those later years, that apprentice program evolved into, and what did you learn from that evolution, both of you, in terms of your personal practice?
Well, I'll piggyback on something Amina was saying when she was introducing this series of you guys and the lab you guys are doing, which is creating new plays, which we call the new play process, is not something you just instinctively know how to do. You have to learn technically what the new play process is. And that was the decision that I made when I started running the apprentice program, that how we could be different, because we had playwrights in the group, was just be about teaching the new play, how it works. And so I think what I started to find over time is it's a technical skill set.
Yep.
You bring your artistry to it, but it's a technical skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to surrender to the skill set first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can create this world of magic. And I think most people who have not experienced the skill set think that you just create new work. Mm. And that's how you hit the wall, because it just, first drafts don't get you nowhere. You know what I mean?
Nowhere.
Except out of your system. You know what I mean?
It's like, that was cute.
Now what we gonna do?
No, we're gonna do it. We're gonna write a play now.
So
Yeah, that technical skill set, that's a really good way to put it. And I want to just point out that I learned so much during that time with the apprentices from Adai and Marguerite, because Adai, you also were the sort of the linchpin of that whole program, because you were able to mentor the playwrights. And I think that you could focus on structure and the story, and does it work as a play? Is it a play? And how does that play work? And you could dig into the writer side of that and the dramaturg side of that. And then Marguerite and I could focus on the process from there. So it's sort of, I was just talking about this today in a rehearsal with Carolyn Cook, a piece that we're developing for Théâtre du Rêve. And so the playwright does those structure things, but then in the moment that it meets a table full of actors, you get to find out, is it true? Like, does it work, which is structural and dramaturgical, and then there is it true? Does a human being who's embodying it, are they able to connect to it truthfully? And so it was this great collaborative handoff between those two processes, I think.
Yeah, I love the idea of does it work? The nuts and bolts of structure, and is it true? The nuts and bolts of performance. I love that breakdown. Amina, I'm gonna put you on the spot because you were a part. You're an apprentice alum.
Yes, I am an apprentice alum, and I was actually going to say before I talk about my apprenticeship journey, can you all talk about what the apprenticeship company is for people who may not know? Because I think some people kind of jump into writing or acting and may not have, especially for Black actors, may not have gone through traditional apprenticeship programs. So can you talk about what they look like and what the purpose of them are, just for people who may not have an idea yet?
Well, here's it was always my pitch because I believed it. That we operate in an industry where there is a lot of unspoken, unwritten rules and protocol and creative approaches. I really don't think that you can learn it in a book because you need all those books. Don't get me wrong. And you need all those, and you need the undergrad classes. You need the graduate school classes. But we are an industry, because I think it's people collaborations, we do need the interning and the apprentice side. We need people in the room who sound like old me. We need people in the room who can look you in the eye and say, I'm not a professor, I'm not on a tenure track. I want to tell you whether this is going to work in the real world.
Right.
And year after year, what we constantly heard from folks is like, oh, wow. Oh, no one ever told me that. Oh, I never looked at it that way. And so without working professionals in the room trying to guide you to the next step, you don't get the nuances. And then that's just level one. Right. You know what I mean? Then you take that experience and then you go try to sell it and try to get your level 2 gig, you know what I mean? And learn some more there. But yeah, I'd say that.
And I will say, yes, I was an apprentice, and I was an apprentice with Marguerite, and she took nothing from me. That was any kind of mess. And I tried to pull some things some days too. But it was for us, it was and I'm not sure how apprenticeships will even look post pandemic, honestly, because things are going to be so different. But for me, it was a 1-year process. And so we met 3 days a week. Tuesday was Playwrights Day, and we get our dose of a diet who would have us doing all these crazy exercises. I still have some plays that I'm in my just kind of on my computer that I'm like, I'm gonna finish that because this exercise was hilarious, and the world just needs to know it. But for us, we also had to serve backstage for one show, and we had to serve the front of house for a show. And it changed. And I had been doing playwriting, and I was around. I already had my MFA before I did my apprenticeship. But in Atlanta, it is that unspoken rule thing, Marguerite, where people did not really pay attention to me as a playwright until I did an apprenticeship. And then all of a sudden, everybody was like, "Well, why are you doing an apprenticeship company?" I said, "Because y'all didn't pay attention to me before I did one." And so in Atlanta, there is kind of an unspoken rule between the people who have done apprenticeship companies and the people who have not, and how far their networking goes. But also as the playwrights, we had to write a 20-minute piece, 20-minute piece. I think it was a 10-minute piece. And then it was a full length. And we had to actually mount them on productions with the actors who were in the company. And that was a specific kind of skill that I very much appreciated that you all shared during that process. Because now I get commissions and have to write for people. Right. And so now I'm like, oh, well, I can write for people because I was already taught in my apprenticeship company how to write for people. But can you all, Lauren, you mentioned that you are a director and an actor. How has new play development impacted the way you approach your artistic practice?
Well, like I said, I think actually that it formed my artistic practice. I don't think I knew the difference in the beginning. And that is just how I came up. But I think that the things I've learned in new plays, I take, if I'm doing a published work where the playwright is not a collaborator at the table, then I don't know. I don't know that I approach it all that differently, except that I just don't have the benefit of that collaborator. I don't have the benefit of the other person working with me to create the story. I was thinking, so Amber Bradshaw and I were talking after the Unexpected Play Festival that I did at Theatrical Outfit about how every process you do, and we were specifically talking about new play process, but it's almost like it's on a dial, right? There's process versus production.
Mhm.
And every play you do, no matter what it is, that dial exists somehow. Like if you're working someplace that they need this to be slick, then that production dial is all the way over, and you just may not get to spend as much time in process. And with new plays, the thing I love about it is that that dial gets to turn toward the process, and it necessarily has to. And then as a director, my job also changes a little bit in the new play process, because it's impossible, even, if you're lucky enough to have a dramaturg in the room with you, you are still thinking dramaturgically as a director too. So it's not just directing the play, you're also helping birth the play in the same way a dramaturg might. So I don't know how to separate them, actually. I just know that all of my work on new plays has been so valuable.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you can't separate them, because I'm also thinking too about being in rooms, in whether it's a lab room or a play development room or even a rehearsal room. And when I'm observing actors dealing with text, I can tell whether or not they've worked on new plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like instantly.
Marguerite always says that too.
Like
Yeah.
instantly. And it's not a bad thing if they haven't.
Mhm.
But there's a very distinct way that actors who are trained in new play development approach text that I think is extremely unique. And I think it's because, like especially in the processes that we developed at Horizon, everybody in the room is a dramaturg.
Mhm.
Like literally
Mhm.
everybody in the room is a
Mhm.
dramaturg. And that's a really and so when I've been in rooms that have been packed with actors who are trained in new play development, those rooms are the most exciting. Because everyone's giving really sharp, amazing notes.
Right.
and not trying to rewrite the play.
Yeah. And I think it's the ownership. It's the ownership.
Mhm.
Because, one of the things we, really got to the point in those last couple of years that we could really articulate, it's like, to actors, you've got to own this role.
Mhm.
You've got to give of yourself in a way that your playwright can identify the possibilities. The playwright doesn't have to agree with the possibilities you bring to the table. But if you don't own it and bring it, they have no way of envisioning the opportunity with that character.
Right.
And I think that those of us that like the creative process and love to be collaborators, that's why we love new plays. Because, like you said, everybody's a dramaturg. I might be in the room as the producer, but I got as much to say on everything that's happening as anybody else, because we're all collaborating. And that, because, and if you've got a great collaboration, you have people with different vantage points in the room vying to let their vantage point have its voice.
Right.
I do think that with new playwrights, it can be intimidating.
Mm. Mm.
But I think that's an intimidation that new playwrights have got to grow through.
Right. Right.
You know, because new playwrights tend to come to the table with either I can't come up with the ideas,
Mhm.
and are challenged, you know, with that mantle you burden yourself with, or I've come up with all the ideas and how dare you not buy into everything I brought to the table.
Right.
And those of us that have been in the new play world, it's like, baby, you don't get to own everything yourself. This part works.
Right. This is the way. Yeah. And the thing is, and it is hard for newer playwrights and also playwrights who have been trained differently. It's often hard for them to like accept the fact that the entire room can be a collaborative space where there's really no hierarchy, where there's a good chance the dramaturg can give you the same note that the actor who's playing the lead is going to give you. And also knowing, like, as a playwright, and you know, and this is still a hard thing for like even experienced playwrights, you know, every note may not apply to the play you're writing.
That's right.
But write them down, and I guarantee you one or two are going to definitely give you what you need. So, Chaz and Brittany, hey, what's up, y'all?
Hey, y'all.
Hey, fam.
But you know what?
Nice.
Hey! One of the things that you just said, though, about hierarchy, you know, the 2020 has made a huge statement about hierarchy in our industry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the desire to push toward a not vertical hierarchy
Mm-hmm.
is the goal that a lot of people are trying to do, which really fits in with the whole new play. Like, it's horizontal. Everybody in the room, you know what I mean?
I mean, I am waiting for the day, like my dream in terms of the new play development is the day when designers come in the room and pitch stories.
Oh.
Like, I'm waiting for that.
Or
I'm waiting for that
in the room at all.
in the room.
Or in the room.
We're able to compensate everybody enough that they can come there for the whole process, and the whole team actually gets to collaborate the whole time. I mean, that's the dream.
Wow.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
So Marguerite, putting your producer hat on. And especially with all your work with new play development, what are some things that playwrights need to think about when approaching a theater with a new piece? What are some things that playwrights might want to think about?
One of the things I think they need to think about now is panels are looking for story. And they're looking for story in a very interesting way. You know, ages ago, folks used to say, you know, write what you know, write what you know. But I don't think it's as trite as that statement. I think when people would say, write what you know, it's more about write the heart of a situation that you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or that you long to know, or that you're burdened by. Because I'm in a lot of rooms now where a lot of times folks are saying, but why? You know, people have written a tidy little story and they're like, why?
Right.
What does this do to advance the conversation in the world? What, you know what I mean? What does this do? What does this do? You know, so there's a lot of that happening. I hear that a lot. Um, and the other thing is producers try to build relationships with writers.
Mhm.
So the first piece you write may not be what a producer thinks is a fit for their theater or their festival or whatever parameters they're working with. But if they find you are a good storyteller and there is an opportunity when you get a chance to talk to some of them, you don't have to be phony, you don't have to be hard sell, you just have to be genuine.
Right.
Just do you, because that's something Marguerite's learning in her old age. And then the people that you connect with, you will naturally connect with.
Yeah.
So then either before or after, they'll read one of your stories. And then all of a sudden, then they will start engaging you because they know both sides of you.
Right.
But I do think now it is about a genuineness of spirit and then a desire to tell stories that make a statement somehow. So, and why I say stories now as opposed to focusing on like, and I'm not using gimmick as a bad word, but focusing on the gimmick of I want to tell the past and the future. I want it to jump around in time periods. I want it to be the, the thing is, all of that still works. But right now, people in the room are asking about the story first.
Mhm.
And do those things enhance the storytelling? Because if they don't enhance the storytelling, you're going to get a room full of folks going, yeah, okay, but why?
Right.
And then we touched on this whole thing about honesty. I mean, I think the ramifications of 2020 are the story has to seem relevant.
Mm.
There's a lot of rubrics that have changed
Right.
in judging material over the last year that have recentered the judging criteria to, is it relevant? Does it represent an underserved thought process or people, or is this something we need to know? Did it move us lightening our spirit? Did it force us to, you know what I mean? There's a lot more of that happening right now in the room as people are reviewing work.
Right.
So I've also been in rooms where folks are like reviewing work that had been put in the pipeline before 2020, and folks are going, wow.
Let's go back to that.
Right. Can we even, I mean, do we even want to talk about this kind of stuff anymore? I mean,
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
thing.
I just want to point out that there's been a little bit of chatter here. Brittany Smith says, be genuine. That takes you very far. I had to read it with emphasis. I'm not an actress, but I had to do it right with the heart of the situation, And then Mary Seville from earlier, is collaborative creation with the team. Just wanted to point out those are some of the things that people are affirming there. So,
and the thing about relevance too that I think people get stuck on is assuming that, and that doesn't mean you have to write about COVID or the racial reckoning. Because like, I mean, one of the most relevant things that I saw all year was Lovecraft Country, and that was set in the 1940s. So it's like, I think relevance is about, do the themes and ideas of the story resonate right now? And I think a lot of times, writers and producing organizations have gotten away with not making sure that the narratives and the themes resonate. and instead making much more, safer, more cautious choices. But I think people are ready for new ideas and new perspectives right now. We want to hear some different angles.
But I think it goes back to the conversation you all had earlier about, is it real and is it true?
Yeah.
And right now, especially post-pandemic, some people have seen so much that they can't do something that's not real and not true.
Right.
Even if it's fiction, it still has to have a reality to it, and it has to have a truth to it. And it just can't be something that you're just perpetuating something that, I mean, now that the glasses have come off, we really can't, or rather we put glasses on, we can't unsee what we've seen.
Right.
And so if we can't unsee what we've seen, then how is that going to, and then further impact? And also too, knowing that work doesn't have to be in a room anymore. This can be the room. And so what does that do for works that where you can work with people who you never thought you'd get a chance to work with, because you're able to create a room out of a space that wasn't there before.
Right.
I think that's huge. And I also think that this space has really served the new play processes that I've been involved with this year. Like would I prefer to be around a table? Yes. But I also think there's accessibility and inclusion that just couldn't happen in a room. And that has been very cool.
Yeah.
I also think, this is going back a little bit, but I just feel the burning need to say it. Talking about apprentice companies and what they do and how they work in our community, I mean, that we're going to have to take a hard look at that too. Like the economic model of how they've worked in a theater, like theaters couldn't survive without them. But are the apprentice, like the fact that most of them are not getting paid, some are, like, that's kind of not okay.
Yeah, what's the model?
Yeah. What's the model? And so I feel like we really have an important conversation about equity there that has to happen. But I do think they're really important because moving to a new city as an artist and like getting embedded into a community and having people know how to trust you, because that's really what it's about. It's like, can I trust you? Can we work together in a room? And that's really what you have to know about people. Right. And of course we take chances all the time, but just coming to a new place is really hard. And the apprentice companies provide a way to do that is clear. Right. And that's important.
Right. I mean, all of my even though I went to grad school and dropped out after a year and then went back later, but when I first got back, my relationships in the theater community started because of an apprentice company that I was in at the time. I mean, it's a big deal in this city. I'm not sure how it is in other cities. I know in Atlanta it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad too, Lauren, that you leaned in on the idea that we got to deal with equity, y'all, in these apprentice companies.
Yeah.
Lord, I mean, there's something about doing, and the trade-off has always been, you take these classes for free, and then you also do work for the theater. But we have to deal with the reality that a lot of folks come from different economic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And to be able to do an apprenticeship that doesn't pay requires a certain kind of privilege. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think theaters have to start thinking about. Okay, so how can we make sure that we at least give these folks a stipend of some sort? Because a lot of them are coming in with different, from different economic class backgrounds. And again, a lot of people, they can't afford to do apprenticeships because they have to work.
Right.
So yeah. We got to have some hard discussions about how these models are structured.
I also think, go on.
I was just going to point out, Marysville wrote that even the companies that already pay apprentices decently may not be able to have an apprentice company when they reopen because the money won't be there to pay them.
That's a good point there.
And then even at the same token, for Brittany, she said that the apprenticeship changed everything for her career. So there is this catch-22 of you kind of need an apprenticeship company that may or may not be able to pay you, but you need it in some cities, at least in this one, in order to move your career forward.
Yeah.
But I'll also say something about virtual relationships. The really cool thing about virtual relationships, in addition to a national level of exposure, but I think it's accountability. When you are new to this industry, you may not understand how significant and how huge being accountable is to people in this business. You're there when you say you are going to be there. You deliver what you said you were going to deliver. You're not the one that forces the deadlines to change, even if they change around you. You bring your full energy to the table as much as you possibly can, because that is what people that have been in the industry are looking for, to spot you out of a group and give you that extra tug. Yes, there is unfortunately a gatekeeper thing, but there is a way around gatekeeping just being about privilege that you can't manipulate.
Right.
And that can be challenging, because those of us that have been in the industry are dealing with ourselves, what we talk about, which is, the PWI's, predominantly white institution model of theater means you got to work till you die and be grateful you got the shot to work till you die.
All right.
Now, we're talking about it. So we're not just talking about what we put apprentices companies through. We're talking about what we put
What we go through.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're like, checking ourselves. But when you see people who are juggling several projects, doing several things at the same time, and you're new, you've got to be that reliable, regardless of whether you want to be or not. You got to be that reliable person that when one of us looks to the side, it's like, oh, dang, you, hey, baby, come on, you're always there. I'm so sorry. And then you're there for the pull and the yank and the boost. Because we're looking to pass the torch. We're looking to bring people in to join us that we can depend on, that we can say, you know what, why don't you take that part, because I don't have any more brains. and have noticed by how you've handled everything that I can do that. So there are other ways, with or without an apprentice company, of getting into community, and then just making sure that whatever communities are in, you become a valuable member of that community, where folks are like, if you ask me about 2 or 3 people, bump. You know what I mean? You want to be in that 3.
Yeah.
It's just kind of that. I mean, that's life. That's just kind of life.
And that relationship building aspect is, I mean, because, I'm going to keep it real. Like, when I'm working on projects, and Amina knows this is the truth. I will literally be like, I was like, okay, so who in the apprentice company during what year would be good for this? I mean, that's really, I'm not going to lie. Anybody who knows me knows that. because these are artists that I have worked with and I've seen their work. And so I have some idea about, what they will bring to a room, especially a new play development room, because I've seen them work. I've watched them work. Some of them I've trained. So it's like, those are the eyes. I mean, literally, I go through my apprentice Rolodex and be like, okay, who would be good for this? Oh, and give them a call, shoot them an email.
Mhm.
But again, that's because those relationships have been established and the person has proven that they are reliable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a really, really important thing when you're in those situations.
Yeah, and I would even add too. I think that because it's not just being in a room and being reliable. It's also saying, hey, who can vouch for you, and do we trust the word that someone says? Because I
Right.
remember even in casting one of our labs recently, it was just like, we need a person. We don't know how to find this person, and we called someone's like, hey, do you know X, Y, and Z? And they were like, yes, these are a couple people that we will say absolutely without a doubt are people I've worked with and have done these things. And then Adai was like, oh yeah, I've seen that person and I didn't know who they were. But it became not only have I worked with you, but other people in my circle who I trust have also worked with you and been in a room with you. And that word of mouth conversation is what gets you sometimes an opportunity because of the word. And you might have even been in a room where you might have had a minor role or not even, or just kind of been like, you're on the sidelines, but just doing your work. And then people being like, let me pluck you for this because of how you operated when you were in the room at that point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And both Marguerite and Lauren will tell you that they get calls asking about folks all the time. And again, it's like your reputation, it's like your work ethic follows you. So no matter the space, just make sure that you're working hard.
Well, Lauren and I know we always tell folks that.
Joey, what's up, Joey? Joey's here.
Hey, Joey!
Yeah, he just says his favorite thing about the right APCOs in Atlanta is that they do what they can to transform the gatekeeping into guiding. And some of the ways around the gates that are out there in this town, and the roadmap is invaluable to young artists.
Thanks, Joey.
I mean, that is what you hope, that it is an opportunity to create those relationships, and also to, it's not just, because I think that's a really important thing, that predominantly white institution, those, like, we all have to work until we die. We have to work 100 hours a week or we're not good. We have to sacrifice and martyr ourselves on the altar of the theater. And I have been in that altar.
We've all done that.
Absolutely. And thought it was normal. Yeah.
And thought it was normal. And COVID has really made me question a lot of that. So I think that's really important. I think it's important as relates to apprentice companies. And I think, like, instead of saying, well, the point of this is just to have you show up and see, like, how fast can you run? It's not like that. It's like, how well can you communicate? And what kind of community member are you going to be in our collective? That is the best way, because the collective doesn't work unless we're all in it and we're all relying on each other. And that, I think, is the best hope that I have for it. Because, theater's going to be a lot of work no matter what. How do we support each other through it? And are you the kind of person who is willing to do that?
Absolutely.
And no, go on.
No. So Lauren, I was going to ask you too. Speaking of support and initiating things, I know you've done a lot of devised work. You've worked with pieces like from their inception to production. What are some keys or some advice for people who want to self-produce that you might offer? And you too, Marguerite, but Lauren first. Yeah.
Lean on those relationships is my first piece of advice.
Right.
Borrow everything that you can. And yeah, I think people want to help when you ask. I think that's true in general. And I think I always felt like, well, I'm just supposed to, like, show up and know everything. And that's not true, and impossible also. And so you build relationships when you ask for help. And that's a way to widen your community.
Right.
And then creatively, for the self-producing piece of it, I would say like figure out what the process, what the play wants to be, and let it take you there. Like not what you want it to be, but what does it want to be? Yeah, that may be a little woo-woo. That's a whole nother.
No, I think it's about I think it's about trusting the process and letting the process guide, and not necessarily your ego or what you intend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I'm gonna grow past that trusting the process, because I agree, and I think with self-producing or anything you do, you should go into it for the experience to gain more knowledge of your art, of how you do your art. And the thing is, and I think everybody, all four of us can say this, but because you never know, there is no way of you knowing what experience is your gateway to the next level.
Right.
You don't, there is no way to project that. But when the next level door opens, you are always able to look back and go, oh, wow, that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now I am here.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? But, and I know, like, everything I am doing right now is all a result of a series of things that I can tell you what they are. That happened, then that happened. Then I went there, then I just opened my mouth over there, and then I stood there, then I said, no, this isn't it, and da-da-da-da. And next thing I know, I got a phone call or an email.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So everything, and a lot of those steps that have made the doors open for me now the way they're opening were not all good steps. A lot of those steps required long conversations with Lauren, long conversations with the Di, long conversations with Amina, and half of the people that are watching this call. Yeah, I'm like, give me a reason to go back in for another round, because
you better not leave me here.
Yeah.
That's really threat, Lauren.
We have to have that off the record conversation and be like, we need to go to the hallway and at the end of
the parking lot outside
have a conversation. And those hallway parking lot conversations through your program, that's real.
The Horizon has heard some things.
Horizon parking lot has heard some things.
You know, and then all of a sudden one day you're somewhere and someone says, hi, we met you. We would love to and you're like, really? Oh, okay. And had I walked away from any of that list of stuff that I really wanted to walk away from, I really want to walk away. It wouldn't be what it is today.
Right.
So that's the other part. And also, because on my journey, I am of an age where a lot of people in my generation don't necessarily have MFAs. And I know personally there was an intimidation of I don't have the credentials that others have. So will those doors open for me? And now that I'm at some of those tables, I'm like,
yeah,
look, you might have gotten it in school, you think, but I got it for real. So come on, let's talk. I'm not apologizing for my trajectory anymore. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, I didn't expect to get here, but I know how I got here.
Right.
And so you're like, nope.
I would ask, and I feel like, and this isn't meant to bring anything in particular or one particular thing up, but I have started to notice that there are some companies that for fellowships or internships, they're requiring certain kinds of degrees in order to get them.
Oh, really?
And so like I saw something where you have to have an MFA in order to even be considered. And I was like, well, do people really, how many people are actually getting MFAs in that area in order for them to then come to a fellowship and then possibly, you know, do this work here or go out in the community. I think that, I mean, especially because a lot of MFAs aren't, most MFAs, you have to pay something out of your pocket. There aren't a lot of tuition things. I'm really wondering how that's going to change things, or if that's something that, I mean, because I'm hearing you say that it's not always necessary, and I definitely agree that you can learn a whole lot more in the room than you can from the degree. But if we're starting to also have people say that they are requiring that, how do you kind of work in between that? How do we still consider, you know, start to encourage younger artists who are seeing that as starting to become a mountain for them when it doesn't always have to be, and even some of the people running those programs don't have MFAs.
Right.
Well, I personally would say if you can figure out somebody who will give you one for a free ride, you know what I mean? If you can get a free ride to some letters behind your name, all good.
Mhm.
But I will also say that I'm now in rooms where people are realizing that the limit on diversity is based on some of those arbitrary rules.
Yep.
And
Right.
that those things are being discussed and changed. That's why, like, I'm grateful because I'm in rooms where I'm like, yeah, well, who knows you exist? Oh, everybody at those schools. Well, what about everybody else? So I think, like I said, if you can get more without going into hock, why not? Because you meet people, because it's all about meeting people.
Oh,
But I would also say that I would say with what I'm exposed to now, if you look at an opportunity and they say, we're only looking for X, but you have real tangible experience, I don't see why you don't send in with a cover letter that says, I know you are asking for X.
but this is what I have.
However,
Right. I agree 100%.
I have this.
Right.
I was
And
gonna say the exact same thing, like, because I know, I mean, this is me and Marguerite sitting behind a table trying to cast the Apprentice Company, but like, I know for a fact that if somebody had a great audition, we loved them, and their resume was amazing, but they hadn't quite finished their degree, that was technically a requirement, was the undergraduate degree. But I know for a fact that when you are sending in those applications, you're sending them to humans
Right.
who can make a decision.
Right.
Hopefully.
yeah.
Right. So Marguerite,
Go
Yeah.
Black Woman Speaks.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Tell us about this wonderful project that we are all jazzed about.
We are.
Okay, so the long official title is The New Georgia Woman Project, Black Women Speak. So actually, it's an evolution of so many things that happened in 2020. So many new initiatives that were happening because folks are like, folks in boardrooms are realizing where you put your money is where you're really involved. So saying I want this, but I'm not putting any money against it is bull. They're all. I've been on so many Zoom seminars, it's insane. But there's also this group called Of, By, and For All. that is like a toolbox for community engagement. And it's several months, you have to log on every month for this and then a Trello board of all of this stuff. But one of those sessions, because, they're short sessions with all these people from arts organizations all over the country, museums and theaters and choral groups and all. And they said something that just like aha the hell out of me, which was arts organizations make things for people and then get mad when they don't come to the thing you made for them.
Wow.
And everybody on that call, when we went into our little breakout rooms, they were like, yeah, that's what we do. We find X and then we say it's in next season. And then we're like, we go look for people. Don't you want to do this? Because we're doing it for you. And I was like, damn, that is who we are as an industry.
Wow.
And Of, By, and For All challenges you to identify a community and do it of them and by them so that when you create for them, we've all been on this journey together.
Right.
And we're not making any assumptions for the community. And that, those little simple breakout sessions with those folks just really kept haunting me. And then there was, okay, there's a grant that is going to give money. It's not going to tell you what the project has to be, but it has to center all BIPOC creatives and producers. If you could participate in some money for theater, for something for theater, what would you create? And it was like, you could do whatever you want. And so then my brain started clicking. And I guess the last part is, as a Black woman, seeing all of the outsized impact that Black women have had in this last year, and really personally believing that we are in a period where the civil rights movement is being, fronted by us. Everybody's there, but you know what I mean? It's our turn. And so all of this was buzzing in my head. And then I said, well, wait a minute. I'm acting just like everybody else. Yes, this is my community, but I don't want to make assumptions about my own community. No, I just want to go talk to people.
Right.
I want to get some Black female writers. I want to get groups of Black women in Atlanta who are willing to Zoom and do story circles and just talk. And as someone who started as an actor, saying there are not enough plays that are just about Black women right now. Just Black women, not well, I won't say but and so that is how I started, it started churning. And the other thing that's a good and a bad is this 2020 forced me to have to really say, well, instead of saying, why are y'all looking at me now because I'm Black, being the exact opposite and said, well, hallelujah, I'm a Black woman in this day. And I'm going to take every door that's open to me because y'all are all looking to, deal with your guilt. I'll take it.
Give me your guilt money.
You know what I'm saying? I'll take it. I'll take the energy. I'll take the money. I will go do something I've been wanting to do.
Right.
And that's how it came about, and that is why it is about a journey, and together we'll find out what the destination is. And my hope is that the destination will be several new projects for theater in whatever iteration theater is and wants to be in the future. But there will be several opportunities to create stories of, by, and for this cohort of Black women. So, yeah. That's how it came about.
I cannot wait.
Me too.
And so the thing is, I mean, I think what I love about it is there are places of buy-in on all levels. It's like, oh, y'all will love this. Yes, I'm producing the project. Guess who's the assistant producer of the project? LaWanda Green.
That is amazing. Yes.
I mean, it gives you chills. That it's like, oh my God, when you get a chance to say, "Come on, girl, you know, you've been quietly knowing everything, sitting back there. Come on,
literally everything.
Get to work, man." You know what I mean?
We're excited because LaWanda is someone who has worked in admin for such a long time. And so to hear her doing something artistic again is just very exciting for the group. So I just wanted to clarify for the audience that for those of us who know LaWanda and know that how pivotal she is doing admin, it's so good and exciting to know that she's going to be doing some art and that we'll be able to work with her in that realm as well. So
yeah, but again, like, but that's a great example of like bringing folks in the room to play.
Bringing folks in,
yeah,
get a chance to play.
Right. Exactly.
It's so important. And it's going to be important for the project, having LaWanda's perspective in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And she's one of the smartest people I know. So that too. It's like, who? And then 4 writers, and the writers will be from early career, emerging, and established. And we'll take into consideration what opportunities have and have not been available. You know what I mean? So we're not going to be saying, "Oh, I'm only looking for X." Oh, sorry. You know what I mean? Then the other level is which is the part that we're going to start working on next week, is we're going to get groups of Black women to want to meet on Zoom to talk. You know what I mean? And we will bring artists together in groups too. You know what I mean? We're not isolated. It's just like, let's talk. You know, I mean, I have all kind of prompts, you know, like one of my prompts is, you know, are you married still? You know,
we just want to be in there. That one, like, spill all the tea, please. We want to know all the tea. Thank you.
but it's that opportunity to talk about everything from the essential to the you know, what are we still talking shit about? And then once we have evolved past the conversations, then we will bring directors and actors and dramaturgs into the room. And, you know, because we're not trying to necessarily tell any one person's story. We're trying to find out what stories want to be told. Now, that's scary. But I'm committed to that. It's like, just what you just said, Laura. What stories want to be told from all of these conversations?
Right.
And also because we've engaged the community, then the community are our partners, so they get kept, they stay with us through the whole journey. And then the goal is in November to be able to do workshop readings of 4 pieces. And then we'll know what is possible to, commission a full length for, or, you know what I mean? Wait a minute, whatever theater is after December. But,
Right.
Right.
Or for whatever the hybrid is. So there's going to be a hybrid for sure.
Yeah. So whatever the hybrid is. And that for me is also exciting because we're not going into it with predetermined notions. Or should I say, I'm not, because, oh my God, I'm like the ringleader, cheerleader. I'm not letting us go into it with preconceived notions.
And you shouldn't. And I just love you leaned into the fact that, and I think this is true for all community work, and it should be going forward, that it's not about what you can do for a community, it's about what you can learn from them.
Right.
That's really important.
Right.
What do they need? Not what can we give them as an institution, but what do they need? What stories do they want to hear? How can we provide a service? How can, as an arts institution, as a community, how can we be of service?
Right. With whatever resources we have.
Right.
And being aware that we have to be willing to invest in them as well. If we're going to ask them for what they need, we got to be willing to invest and put our money where our mouth is as well.
Right. Exactly. We have to be willing to invest. We've got to stop this one-off mentality.
Yeah.
Where I need, do you know 10 people I can call so I can have this focus group? And it's like, oh man. And I will admit what's interesting, because with Of, By, and For All, you call them COIs, community of interest.
Mm-hmm.
It is very touchy when your community is the community of interest.
Ooh.
I realized that because I was like, there were a couple times when I was like, damn, maybe I should have said we're focusing on somebody else, because you talking about me and my family that way is making me feel some kind of way.
Right.
But now I understand the good part about that is that sensitivity is reminding me of the level of respect that has to happen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because if it's making me feel some kind of way, then why?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why, Marguerite?
Right.
What just touched you up? How was it said? How was it approached? Was it inauthentic? You know what I mean? So it's a really interesting journey. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, I know we could talk for much longer, but we are out of time for today. We really are. We are so grateful that you all stopped by and hung out with us in the Blue Bottle series.
Yes.
And just spill all of your knowledge. And so we are so grateful. And thank you, Marguerite. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for everything you all do for apprenticeships and just in new play development in Atlanta in general. We just thank you all so much for being here.
Well, it's an honor to be in the room with you. Thank you for asking me. Thank you. This was great. It was just so good to see all of you.
I know. This feels like the good old days. We're in the parking lot, y'all. We're in the parking lot.
With all the laughter, too, that comes with all the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to thank y'all for being in community and for being family, and for continuing to do really important work in this city. Love y'all.
Yep. Oh, wait, hold on. You didn't ask your question?
Oh.
Now you slipping. You cannot.
Oh. So we have this question that we ask everybody at the end of the show. You
have one of those.
Yeah, we have one of those.
Just one.
If there's a book or a movie or something that has excited you creatively that you could recommend today, what would it be? It can be a movie, it can be a TV series, it can be a book, it can be a play.
Well, while Lauren's being profound, I'm gonna say my taste is really out there,
Okay.
and I have to say I loved WandaVision. Okay.
I haven't watched it yet. Oh my gosh. It's in my queue to watch. I haven't gotten it yet. I'm gonna get there.
Because I like to go somewhere else.
Yes.
WandaVision is a definite must.
Yeah, WandaVision is great. I'm gonna say that I have had a profoundly difficult, I'll be profound. I've had a profoundly difficult time reading for the last year of my life. Nowadays, like I'm reading plays because it's my job. And I love doing that. But actually making it through a novel or shows that are stressful in any way, like the Great British Baking Show, like that's the level of stress that I can handle. Like that, I know that the worst thing is going to happen is that they're going to go home. That's it. That's all I can handle. No death. No, like there's plenty in the world right now. So, but I've been reading a book for a year now and it's beautiful. I love it, but I'm struggling. But it is called The Overstory, and it is about how trees communicate with each other and with the environment and how everything is connected, like underground.
Like the mushrooms underground and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Fiction. It's fiction. It's all of these stories, but in the way the book is told mirrors the way the forest speaks to each other, right? All of the stories of these individual people locked together. And it's just a really lovely, beautifully written book that I have been reading for one whole year.
That goes on the list.
It's great.
What you got, Amina?
Well, I'm gonna do the throwback to a play that I can almost never get out of my head because it kind of floored me because I saw it in this really small theater in Kentucky once. Chissa Hutchinson's "This Is Not a Play."
I love Chissa's work.
Huh?
I like her work.
Oh yeah, her work is just I can't explain it. She starts with an idea and you're like, whoa, I went to a different rabbit hole altogether. I'm such a fan of Chissa Hutchinson's work and hope that she gets to do more, but this is not a play, is one that I very much appreciate because it kind of bends reality. You're like, I'm in a play, but I'm not. And this conversation happened, but then it didn't. And the audience is in on it, but they're not. And so I really appreciate that particular work and a lot of her work, but particularly that one.
Yeah,
that's one on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this popped in my head because I want to go back and see it again. Nomadland with Frances McDermott. It's on Hulu. It is absolutely beautiful. It is slow. It's poetic. It's heart-wrenching. Frances McDermott is probably my second favorite actor on the planet. And it's just a beautiful story. Nomadland.
See, I have to own the fact that I'm always the only escapist in the room.
No,
you're just the only person who listed it.
I love everything y'all said.
Okay, can I give a quick plug for totally escapist but really great, well-written science fiction?
Oh yes.
N.K. Jemisin, like everything she touches, golden, and I that was what I was reading when the pandemic started.
Mm-hmm.
We doing the trilogy.
Oh yeah, and then the other one too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've read everything that she touches.
She's amazing.
Yes, she's amazing. Sorry, that's escape.
Oh no! I like to hear about more new escape stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you all again. I'm gonna hide you all for a few minutes so we can end out. But thank you all. Thank you.
I love you. Respect you so much. Thank you.
All right.
I love them.
I do too. That just made my whole heart warm. I'm so excited. Well, thank you all for joining. I do want to make sure that we mention that this is sponsored in part by the City of Atlanta Office of the Cultural Affairs. So we just want to thank them for their work. And also, if you all would like to continue to see things like this and more, we do have PayPal. You are welcome to find us on Hush Harbor Lab, hushharborlab@gmail, or just Hush Harbor Lab, and you can make a donation. I'll put a slide up in just a second so that you can kind of see how to find us, just in case you have a fancy iPhone or a phone that does, there we go, phone that does QR codes. You're always welcome to donate, and everything that you will donate to us will go toward just supporting and making sure that we can pay our artists, because paying artists is so important.
So important.
Well, thank you for having us today. Thank you for sitting with us. Daye, as always. Yes. All right. Till next week, everyone.
Bye.